Why were taxpayers charged 1.4 million for a charity that explicitly believes in open borders? I'm talking about the Paul Hamlyn Foundation, and Brits were charged this amount between 2020 to 23. So I've become very familiar with the Paul Hamlyn Foundation because I'm interested in how charities are keeping our borders, let's say, very insecure. And Paul Hamlyn Foundation is really a major player in the open border industrial complex. And there are a few of these, such as the Esme Fairburn Foundation, Unbound Philanthropy, which is actually based in the US, and mostly anything Quaker normally promotes open borders. So these organizations have huge amounts of money, mostly inherited from people that have been dead for a while. So Paul Hamlyn, that's certainly true, and Quaker money, certainly true in a few cases. But what they do with that money now, I find incredibly alarming. It is so difficult to keep up with because there's just hundreds upon hundreds of micro organizations. It's all the big money is trickling down into these tiny organizations that are all singing to the same hymn sheet, essentially promoting open borders. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at a few grants. So this year, the Paul Hamlyn Foundation gave £200,000 towards Who is Your Neighbour, which operates at neighbourhood, regional and national levels to counter the impact of racist far-right narratives. They facilitate dialogue about immigration, race and other relevant issues and share learning and experience to inform the work of others. This to me basically means, counter the impact of racist far-right narratives. They're talking about anyone that does not like the current situation of de facto open borders. You're racist far right now. And this organisation, Who is Your Neighbour, will facilitate dialogue about immigration, race and other. But they just mean they're going to clamp down on your wrong thing. Then £180,000 towards Asylos. Asylos is a network of volunteers who provide research to help refugees claim their right to asylum. So that's a good example of, these grants are divided up. You've got the ones that are helping dialogue, essentially clamping down on wrongthink. You've got the ones that are helping illegal immigrants in some cases with their claims, lots of different ones. And then you've got £200,000 to Reliable Media, which runs something called Stop Funding Hate. And Stop Funding Hate, this is how it's described: an online community working to make hate unprofitable by asking advertisers not to fund media that fuel hatred and division. But what are they talking about by fuel hatred and division? They're mostly talking about, they really hate GB News, for instance. They're talking about media that asks perfectly legitimate, reasonable questions about the borders, which are incredibly insecure. But according to them, that's fueling hate and division. And so they're bullying, they're pressurizing advertisers to pull out so that they can clamp down on this dialogue, actual real dialogue about immigration and asylum, to make it easier for them to promote an open border agenda. That's what this is all about. And you've just got so many more grants like this. I'm talking hundreds, thousands. It even goes to Hope Not Hate Charitable Trust. And whatever these organisations are dressed up as, whatever their description is, it's all working together to push for open borders. Unfortunately, the scary thing about all this is Paul Hamlyn Foundation, like I say, it's just one big player in an epic, it's like a galaxy of open border organisations. I think the positive note to end on is really, you don't need to see all of the grants, and I'm talking they're going to be like thousands, tens of thousands across this whole industry, to make sense of what's going on. Really, you just need to understand that there's an ecosystem. It's the big players funding smaller players, and there's a lot of crisscross funding. They're all working together, but obviously the scale, if they have all these tiny units all working in the same way, that's going to make it much harder for me and you to be able to track it all. That's really the point. Why don't they just have a big organization that looks after all of these areas. Well, splitting up makes a lot more sense if you have these political goals. It's a complete mess, but I do feel that once you start understanding what's going on, a future government could actually get a grip on this.